And you're welcome back to the Voters Diary. My name is Vivian Kailoko. I'm being joined by two gentlemen who will help with the discussions around these persons who filed for nominations for the 2020 presidential elections. Nathan Kwao, he heads our research departments for City TV and City FM. He's with me this afternoon. As Nathan, welcome.
Thank you.
As well as Kojo Akoto-Buating, he heads our new media department for TV and radio. He's also with me this afternoon to look at matters arising over that move by the 17 persons. Kojo, welcome.
Thank you, Vivian.
Okay, so guys, today we have to wrap up on these gentlemen and women. And so let's take off with APC, Hassan Ayariga. He's also been on the scene for some time, right?
Yes.
And a very interesting personality as well. Who is he, and is he making any inroads at all, or it'll be business as usual for this election? I mean, if he's approved to contest.
Well, first question, you ask who he is. Well, he's an accountant by training or by profession, so he's a numbers person. And he's been around for a while, like you said, even though he was a very unknown quantity many years ago. In 2012, he emerged. And he was the PNC's presidential candidate. And at the time, the PNC had always been led by Edward Mahama. But in 2012, they decided to go in a different direction. And they settled on Hassan Ayariga. And a lot of people remember him because of his very interesting shenanigans in the presidential debate. 2012 debate. Very fascinating character. And that was really how he got to stay in the minds of the Ghanaian electorate. But then in the 2016 primaries, as the time was getting closer for the 2016 elections, the PNC decided not to vote for him. They decided to go in a different direction. He wasn't too happy with whatever happened. He wasn't happy with the procedure. Thought there was something wrong. Went on to form the APC, and he contested 2016 elections as the flag bearer of the APC. And this will be his third attempt in all, but his second as leader of the APC. So that's what we know about Hassan Ayariga. Very interesting, lively character. Has spoken a lot about, when you listen to him speak about the PNC, he's heavy on agriculture, heavy on growing food here. Very similar to the domestication theme, but he seems to look at it from a slightly different perspective. As to how it will turn out, if history is anything to go by, well, it may not end up too well for a lot of these minority parties, including the APC. But like I said, he's not new to the Ghanaian voter. And he found a very interesting way of getting into the consciousness of the Ghanaian voter via that 2012 presidential debate. I remember he got a nickname, was Ayariga.
Kept coughing all through. So that's him on our screen, Hassan Ayariga. He's leading the APC for the 2020 elections again. Could you, what else?
Well, he's been saying a lot of things, and Nathan, I think he's related to the MP Ayariga.
Yes,
Mahama Ayariga. Yes, they are from the. I think they are brothers. Now he's been saying a lot of things. Free ports, duty-free for cars.
Just like Ekadonko, who is also saying free ports.
And Gum. He says he will establish job centers nationwide, a decentralized states, free primary education to the university level, loan facilities for bus drivers, taxi and chauffeur drivers, production and manufacturing hub economy, support local banks and businesses to thrive. Rail and train transportation system throughout Ghana. Modern hospital ultra-modern hospitals nationwide. And unemployment benefits for all. Unique identity, different passports. And graduate project financing policy. All these are things that's what he says. He says we'll have unique identities and different passports. Maybe you have your Republic of Ghana passport and your ECOWAS passport separate. Yes. And he says graduate project financing policy for graduates and so many other things. One of the things that caught my attention was a bit about ultra-modern hospital facilities across the country. On October 12, 2017, 3 years ago, he said he has started a multi-million-dollar hospital project for the people of Ghana at Hacho. I don't know whether you people remember.
Yes.
To support the delivery of healthcare for the people of Ghana. And the hospital project, according to him, is located at West Legon. Will occupy a 5-acre land, will be the second of its kind in the world and first in Africa. And that it will have over 1,500 beds. And it's back then he said it is estimated to be completed by 2019. We are in 2020. It's not been completed. He shared some flashy photos of some huge facilities on Facebook and in the news, and photos of him in his truck at the site with some young men using wheelbarrows.
So the matter over the, what you call it, the hospital thing, my producer just prompted me that there was some issues with ownership over the time, so the project stalled. Yes, and there were even some clashes.
Yes, I'm trying to link it to this because he says ultra-modern hospitals for all to show that in 2017 he started doing something like that. He tried to, I don't know, land gas or whatever. Hit him in the face. So that's a bit about Hassan Ayariga. He has a series of businesses. He stayed in Germany, schooled in Germany, practiced accounting and related matters in Germany, but he has businesses including haulage and cleaning companies. Okay. And so that's the man, Hassan Ayariga. Okay.
Let me just give you a teaser of Hassan Ayariga very recently when he filed his nomination at the EC's office. Take a quick look at this video, then we'll come and move to other person. So while we're waiting for that video to pop up, we can go to LPG, which is also an interesting one. Kofi Akpalu.
LPG. Always sounds to me like petroleum gas.
LPG.
Get your mind to think about a political party. Yes, but yes, their candidate is Percival Kofi Akpalu. He has submitted, and we'll see if they will all make the list in the end. He's a managing principal for a company called Dovson Lovell and Co. And my digging around Dovson Lovell and Co. is listed in London, is listed on londoncompanies.com. But the status of the company says dissolved. But he's listed there as a director of the company. Okay. So that's something that's an interesting point. You can put an asterisk there. He filed in 2016, but was disqualified. So this is his second attempt. I'm sure he'll be hoping that he will make the final cut. And let's all remember that the EC has stated this criteria, and it has told people what they want to see on those forms if you want to get onto the final ballot paper. But he filed. So this is second time of filing. This is second time of trying to get onto the ballot paper. He has said a few interesting things. He feels that his party provides a better alternative to the NDC or the MPP. But in a 2019 interview he granted a Daily Graphic, he said something very interesting. He said should he win the elections, he would rather have Nana Akufo-Addo on his Council of State other than John Mahama. So I don't know why that stands, but he seems to think that if he wins, he will be better served with Nana Akufo-Addo there than John Mahama. And in that interview, he explained that he felt Nana Akufo-Addo was doing a great job as president at the time in 2019 when he granted that interview. Far better than what John Mahama did in his time. So he feels that if there's somebody who can better advise him, is a president who, in his estimation, has delivered. So he would rather have Nana Akufo-Addo around him than John Mahama. So that's a bit of an interesting insight, slightly. I don't know what it tells you, but it just gives you maybe a bit of an idea of how he sees the two candidates and if he has to lean where he may probably lean.
So that's Mr. Akpalu will be also playing his video shortly.
Akpalu from IPP to LPG.
I don't know what the motto is. I don't know the motto is Someha, not Someha.
No, that was the Young Konkwa. Yes. So let me tell you a bit more about him. So he was an accountant at Capital Radio back then in Kumasi.
Amazing.
And he left Capital Radio and went abroad. He came back and he established Presdell College in Shaeso Denyame area, close to the Ghana Armed Forces Officers Mess, where Kotoko used to train.
Yes.
And then Presdell College collapsed.
What kind of teaching? What institution?
No, Presdell was a second.
So like a secondary school.
Yes. Okay. Secondary school. Yes.
Okay. Private secondary.
Yes, and then he also had a savings and loans company.
Okay.
That collapsed. Oh. Now the location of Presdell College at the moment is where Kesben has built his house in Kumasi. So Kesben, the very popular Kumasi entrepreneur, has built a house there.
So he sold that property was in the land.
A lot of stories are told that his savings and loans company was in Asida House, which was owned by Kesben. So a lot of stories are told that there were some financial issues, so he probably had to let the land go for Kesben. Okay. So he's tried businesses, accountant at Capital Radio, Presidential College,
education,
and then savings and loans and other things. So that's the man, IPP.
So after, LPG. Do we know what he's into these two?
Well, we know he's a businessman. He's an entrepreneur.
But we don't know the sectors where the interests
are. The specifics he's into. If the EC vets his forms and approves them based on historical things that the EC has done, they will publish a brief on all the presidential candidates. I will know what exactly he's into. Like they published in 2012, 2016. We had a list. So what they did was they would put the name of the presidential candidate, the voter ID, the sex, religion, date of birth, hometown and region, highest educational qualification, institution, present and last employer, position, profession, and marital status. So they'll give us those breakdowns. But at the moment, what we've picked is what Nathan has shared and what we also know historically as
Let's pick a quick video from Kofi Akpalu for those who really don't know who he is and what he's been saying. Let's pick a quick one.
This time around, there won't be any problem with my nomination because this is the third time that I've done this. And I've gotten a lot of experience in doing this. So this time around, I don't think there will be any slight problem with my form.
Well, so he's confident this time he'll sail through and
yes,
be on your ballot.
Well, I hope he has filled it properly because the EC standards are quite high, what they demand. The EC is very meticulous in terms of what they want. And not everybody who fails to climb that hurdle gets a second chance. I think in the history of the last, 8 years, it's only Dr. Indum, I believe, who's managed to take the case to court and he's been put back on the ballot. So we hope that he gets it right. He has a very interesting history. I don't want to say much about this very checkered history of things that have not worked, but we hope. And he says in that voice clip that he hopes that he makes it. I'm sure he understands what he's required to do. And I hope he's made it there. We'll see what we'll see what his fate will be in coming days when the EC brings out the final list.
I think today is the 15th of October. I think tomorrow will be his birthday. Yes, Kofi Akpalu, tomorrow will be his birthday. So tomorrow we can have a young Konkwa party.
Okay.
And the LPG party.
Nana Ejenim Boateng, UFP. Who is he?
This is his second time as well. He picked up forms in 2016, but was disqualified. He was disqualified. He didn't make it there. The other thing about Nana Ejenim Boateng, he's leader of the concerned youth of the Ashanti region. He's been part of this pressure group. He leads this pressure group. A few months or some time back, he addressed a press conference in Kumasi and he directed it at the MPP and told the MPP that they had taken residents in Kumasi specifically for a ride and that he felt that the UFP could do something far better. But like I said, he picked up forms in 2016, was disqualified. He has stated a few things. He says his party, for example, is focused on training professionals using the local languages. So that's an interesting policy point there. He also wants to focus on agriculture. He says he wants to give priority to other cash crops apart from cocoa. Because according to him, those crops had been over-prioritized.
It looks like the smaller parties, they are quite interested in these agric discussions.
Yeah, all of them are talking about agric.
In fact,
all the parties are talking about agric.
But it looks, well, why there's so much interest in agric, yet the sector is not, I don't know.
That's a good question to ask. But Nana Ejenim Boateng, if you go to Kumasi, it's called Jataba.
Jataba.
Yes.
Jataba.
Yes.
Why? How did he get that name?
Jataba.
So that's him on our screen. Jataba.
Now,
like I said, he's head of, he leads the concerned group.
So in 2012, remember, Odike was a flag bearer of UFP.
Yes.
Odike formed this UFP party. I remember we used to call them Safwa. And Jataba was the chairman of the UFP.
Okay.
And along the lines, they removed Odike from his own party. So
they said he had breached the party's constitution. He had misconducted himself, and he was kicked out.
So Nana Jenim Boateng Jataba was Odike's party's chairman. And they removed him, and Odike had to go and form a new party, which is called
UPP.
Yes, and now Jataba is the flag bearer. Yes.
Interesting.
When the child of a lion grows, when the cub grows into a full lion, it can't be behind the scenes. It has to be.
They have to be at the forefront because it has to go out and hunt.
Yeah.
It can't be in the forest and be sleeping.
So that's Jataba.
Okay, so now that you mentioned Odike in the conversation of Jataba and Cook, we have to bring in Odike.
So like you said, Odike trying to he's trying to contest again. You know, he initially formed, like Ojo said, the UFP. He got thrown out of the party in 2019, even though soon after that he still carried himself as a member of the party, and he denied.
So that's Odike, also quite popular, isn't it?
He's not new to this election business. He's been around for a while. I think as far back as
2012, he ran. They formed UFP. He ran as the candidate, and Odike in Kumasi is a known brand.
Yes.
Odike Ventures selling shoes. So
the shoes, that business is still there.
The business is not as it used to be. Back then, you had businesses like Topman Shoes, Odike Ventures. There were Excellence stores. And some
all
other,
these in
all in Kumasi.
Some of them had shops in Accra.
And they were really big. When radio became big, Odike Ventures, Topman Shoes were on almost every radio station. At least when I was growing up, I used to listen to their advertisements a lot. And if you wanted a shoe and you enter Topman and you don't get it, you'll get it at Odike. If you don't get it at Odike, you get it at Topman. And they were all in a prime location in Kumasi Edum. So Odike, the name Odike, it's something that people in Kumasi know. It's something, he's quite popular as a businessman, but politically, he's not been able to get the votes. In 2012, we saw what happened, and then later he was pushed out. So this time...
But his home region, Ashanti, should at least be, should be good to him.
If you go to his home...
town proper.
His hometown proper and his home constituency.
Polling station.
Look, as we know Ashanti and how Ashanti votes, and people like Odike, even though they were seen as popular businessmen and all that, they still couldn't convince the people that we can be your president. And then the issues with the party came. Jataba took over the party. He had to go and form a new party. He had to reorganize himself. So those are some of the issues.
Okay, so that's an interesting one. Let's go to Kwesi Busumbru.
Kwesi Busumbru.
PAP.
Yes, the People's Action Party.
Yes.
So he's also quite new. The party was founded in 2018, so not too long ago. Very, very new to this game. His background is in real estate because in my digging, I discovered that he was CEO of a company called Hassan Estate Limited. Hassan Estate Limited. So he's not a lot is known about him. He's kept a very, very low profile. However, he has said a few things.
So that's him. It's not a known person like the others.
Yes, but he has granted a few interviews, and from those interviews, you can glean a bit into his thought processes. He says that, for example, he believes in assets declaration. And he says that if you want to fight corruption, people should declare their assets. Well, that idea is not too new. We've had that even, you had parliament and things talking about assets, former presidents talking about it. He's also spoken about his health agenda, and that I found really interesting. He says he wants to focus on prevention rather than the health system being curative. So it looks like he wants to put more effort in confronting the diseases, making sure that we are better protected against disease rather than reacting to diseases or waiting for them to show up and then we have to find a cure. He's granted a few interviews here and there. I've watched some videos of his interviews. Very interesting character, but like I said, he comes into this with not a lot of clout per se, or political clout or political currency. You see, unlike Odike, who is a businessman and is well known, this gentleman is fairly strange, fairly unknown. So I wonder how he plans on selling his message. But of course, he has, like I've stated, he said a few things in some interviews. So that's a bit on Kwesi Busumbru, People's Action Party. Well, I think one of the newest parties we have because it was founded in 2018.
Yes, and Nathan, you do a lot of work on the historical political parties. People Action Party used to exist in the country.
Yeah.
Way back. And it was dissolved. So he's using the same name. So that's
just like the CPP.
Yes, that's the man, Kwesi Busumru. Real estate person would talk about preventive because of curative, because of the trends we are seeing, that we are spending more money in preventive healthcare.
Yeah.
And if you go to the West, the Scandinavian countries, for example, in Canada, they are spending more money on curative. So they are spending money working on lifestyle diseases. And these days in Ghana, if you look at the health charts, we're getting more strokes, diabetes, and all these things. So there's a shift into creating a lot of leisure activities and leisure opportunities so that people would live right to prevent some of these things. So,
just to add to that, for example, if you go through the NDC's manifesto, they talk a bit about that. They mentioned that they'll create parks, walking spaces for people to exercise, especially, especially those further advanced in age. So it kind of ties into what Kojo is saying.
So he's subscribing to that. But
Busumru is a big title. Busumru.
That's Kofi Annan's
title. It's a big title
was
which
given him.
The Asante give to super excellent people. So Kofi Annan was given the title Busumru, but this one's name is spelled Busumbru.
Yes.
Yeah, because people were asking, the Busumru, is it a title he earned like Kofi Annan's Busumru, or it's a name? But this is just a name that he has.
But like we keep saying he's not popular, he's not known, so definitely on the physicals, campaigns and that, we've not really seen much of him. But
like I said, he's granted
on social media, and is he making
not really. I mean, I've seen a few interviews he's granted, and those interviews kind of provide you a bit of
these are radio or TV?
Television interviews. He's granted television interviews to some of the local language TV stations around, and I've followed some of that. He's also granted a few radio interviews here and there, and in those interviews, like I said, they kind of give you a fair idea as to
who he is
and how he perceives things, and his idea or the philosophy behind his party.
On social media, the Facebook page I've seen that bears the name Kwesi Busumru has about 113 followers. 113 followers. If you check the page, October 11, there was a one-on-one exclusive Facebook Live with him. August 18, he posted, "God, thank you for giving me the unique opportunity to be able to wish myself a happy birthday. Today in good health and happiness, People's Action Party, Kwesi Busumru." And so on and on and on. So we are not seeing any proper action. His personal Facebook page as well doesn't show a lot of things. It just shows he went to Kumasi Academy and a few other things. So he's not used digital media to push his brand.
Okay, let's wrap up with the smaller parties with Henry Lartey of the GCPP. We know his dad, Domestication, aka he was very popular when he joined the race. I mean, he changed the conversation and all that. Yes, so that's him on the screen, his son, who is also taking over the party. But what else do we know about him?
Well, he's an accountant and an entrepreneur, another accountant. So Hassan Ayariga is an accountant, Henry Lartey is an accountant and an entrepreneur. He heads Lartey Associates Ghana Limited. I've been digging around, and they are a company that's into fruits. They are a fruit business. They export fruits. So that's what they do. And he's leader of the GCPP. Now, he replaced his dad in 2012. So he led the party into the 2012 election, took part in the 2016 election, got about 33,000 votes or so in the 2016 election. So he's also another veteran, quote unquote. This is not new to him. He knows this game. He's played this game before. And he's coming back for his third attempt at trying to win the presidency.
I remember when he filed in 2012 and the list came out. There was this conversation, we're having a conversation about him, and somebody asked, so Dr. Henry Lartey is single, so what if he wins? Are we going to have a first lady for Ghana? I don't know whether since 2012 he's changed and he got married, but I remember that question very well, because we're on radio analyzing the various flag bearers, and somebody calls in and says, the EC's list says he's single, and back then he was the only single presidential candidate. So the person was like, so when he wins, are we going to have a first lady? And we found that a bit funny and intriguing. Yeah. So that is Dr. Henry Herbert Lartey. He's from Osu in the Greater Accra region. He has an MBA in economics and finance. He's self-employed. He's a finance person, an agric person, and he's also into international trade. And he replaced his father, Daniel Augustus Lartey, of the Great Consolidated People's Party, Domestication. Yeah.
Okay. It's interesting how then the domestication thing sounded, for a lot of people it was light talk and it was comic relief. But many years down the line, the two big parties all seem to be saying the same thing in different ways. You talk about processing 50% of the cocoa we produce, 1D, 1F, Ghana Beyond Aid, value add. So really, it was interesting how we responded to Dan Lartey at the time. But many years down the line, we seem to be embracing those same things of growing what we eat, eating what we grow, consuming more, and helping local production.
So we've wrapped up with the small parties as well as the independent candidates. You can join the conversation. You can send us a message via Facebook or Twitter. Remember to add the hashtag Voters Diary, or you can send us a message via WhatsApp. The numbers are on your screen now. Let us know what you think. Who would you be voting for? Do you think the smaller parties or the candidates leading small parties are relevant at all? When we come back, we'll look at the two major guys. That's the MPP's Akufo-Addo, as well as the NDC's John Mahama. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Grandma really knows how to take care of her family. Now, it's my turn. And like her, I only want the freshest food. I'm glad there's Samsung Twin Cooling Refrigerator, which retains 70% humidity, extending freshness up to 2 times longer. And with extended freshness, I can extend my care for my family.
So welcome back to the Voters Diary. My name is Vivian Kai. Look, I'm here with Kojo Akoto-Boateng as well as Nathan Kwao. We're looking at the various persons who's filed nominations to contest the 2020 presidential elections. As we speak, the EC is yet to approve of who will be going or who will be on your papers to vote for the 2020 elections in December. But whilst we are waiting for the approval, we've been looking through the various candidates, who they are, the intentions, and what they've been saying. We'll wrap up now with the NDC's John Mahama and the MPP's Nana Akufo-Addo. So guys, John Mahama.
But Vivian, before we go to John Mahama, if you would allow me.
Please go ahead.
So Henry Herbert Lartey was named after his grandfather, who was an assistant colonial secretary or deputy governor from 1932 to 1947. And you're talking about the domestication and the agric. In fact, he's a top exporter of fruits to Europe, and he's earned awards like the Golden Award for Quality and Business Prestige, International Golden Trophy for Quality New Millennium Award, WQC International Star Awards in the Gold category, Golden Award for Quality and Business Prestige in Beirut, and he also won an award from the Ghana Export Promotion Council in 1999, in 2000 and 2002. So in the business that he does, he's quite accomplished. And prior to being an agric person and a fruit exporter, he worked in the UK where he was a manager at Royal Life Insurance, which is one of the respected insurance companies in the world. So in private business, he's an accomplished person. Historically, he comes from a family with a history when it comes to governance. His grandfather was named after his grandfather, his father, GCPP. Talking about some of the key elements that now we are pushing for Ghana. Domestication. That's right. Cultural nationalism, production nationalism, intellectual nationalism, everything. So this is the man, Dr. Henry Herbert Lartey.
But how can he improve its fortunes? Because I mean, from what you're saying, in private life he's doing very well. His background, you know, in leadership, governance, and political history. So the path has been set for him as well, and all that. But in the reality of the politics that he's coming, he's not doing well.
He has to deal with two giant parties, the NDC and NPP, who were there from the start, right? If you look at fourth Republican politics, say from '92, they were there from the start. They, what we say for first mover advantage, they jumped into the fray from the very beginning. They have understood the workings. They've captured the imagination of the voters, and it will take a lot of effort to try out a third option. And I think that is what is confronting a lot of these parties, including the GCPP. And I think the other challenge the GCPP and all the other parties have is that, one, even structure-wise, they don't come across as being convincing enough to the election. Now look at the NDC and NPP. They've got a president, chairman, this, that, all kinds of grand structures. And some of these parties don't even operate like that. If you move away from that point, between one election and the other, how often do you hear of the GCPP, for example? You only hear of them when there's an election. Whilst these other parties, the two giant parties, dominate the space every single day of the year. Between one cycle and the next, they are always there. And they seem to understand this. Overall, they have the resources. A lot of the other parties don't have that kind of resource to do the kind of groundwork you want to do if you want to get the vote. If you want to get 1 million vote, 2 million, 3, 4, 5, because to win an election you need about 4.5 million to 5 million. Now, They don't have, I don't think they have the resources to go down to the voter and convince them enough to get the vote. It's not like they have bad ideas, but just the wherewithal to make it happen is very absent.
And sometimes too, for me, if I look at the smaller contestants, and I'm using smaller in the sense of the numbers they poll and everything, not intellectually small, sometimes you don't come across to me as being very serious. Why? If you don't have the money to mount the huge billboards, if you don't have the money to carry out the huge radio campaigns, maybe you could use social media. But if you even check their social media handles, you don't see the consistency in pushing out their messages and in engaging people. Which I find a bit odd, because if you can't beat the big guys to the cash money campaign strategies, why not use social media, even if you have 100 followers, consistently convince these 100 followers who may end up
also spreading the message for your
we don't see that. So sometimes it makes me feel as though they just are filing just to better their CVs, that Nathan Kwao, me too, I ran for president of Ghana. And I was, sometimes that's
the impression they create. Okay, let's go to John Mahama. He's been in the race for some time. He knows the game, he's part of the game and all that, but he's been speaking about his chances for 2020. Now in 2016 he lost the elections to President Akufo-Addo, but does he think he'll come back? Let's listen to him quickly, then I'll pick your thoughts around him.
So I can assure now that it is, I'm in a unique position because I'm the only president who has the opportunity to come back and correct his mistakes. No other president in Ghana can do that. And now people say when you're cutting a path, normally you cutting the path cannot see is bending. But when you get a chance to stop working and come and sit and look at the path, then you can tell that I was veering off to the left. I need to straighten it. And so when you go back to work, you straighten the path and make it better. So I believe that a new NDC government will be a much better government than the previous one. In government, we did a lot of things that were very good, and there were other things that we could have done better. We have the opportunity to come back and continue the good things that we're doing. But we also have the opportunity to come back to make better some of the things that did not go very well. And so I can assure you now that your faith in us is not misplaced, and that I'm certain, as the youth leader said, that the people of Ulo and Jirapa constituency will give us their vote, and that NDC will come back into power. And that when we come back, we will continue all the projects that have been abandoned so that we can save the taxpayers' money. Because as I've said, those projects were not being executed with our personal funds. These are projects that were being executed with the taxes that all of us pay. And so when a new government comes, and just because projects were started by a preceding government, and out of political motivation, not wanting the credit to go to the past government, deliberately abandon those projects, it is a waste of the taxpayers' money.
Okay, so that's ex-President Mahama speaking there on his chances. He believes his party will be back into power. But who really is he, apart from us knowing he was a former president?
Well, he got into Parliament in 1996. And even before Parliament, he went out to Russia to go study. And when he came back, he did some interesting things. He first worked with Plan Ghana. He worked with Plan Ghana, an NGO. Then he went to work with the Japanese embassy as a culture and research officer. And then from that point onwards, he decided to veer into politics. So he got into Parliament in 1996 as MP for Bole. And then, coincidentally, was the same year as Nana Akufo-Addo. So Nana Akufo-Addo also got into Parliament in 1996. So John Mahama was in Parliament between 96 onwards, and then he became deputy. He was Minister for Communication at a point. That got him close to the corridors of power, major power. Then he became the running mate for Professor Mills in 2008, and then the NDC won that election. Then he was vice president, and in 2012, we had the very sad experience of Professor Mills dying in power. And then John Mahama became president a few months to the election, won that election, and then he served his first full term between 2012 and then 2016. So that's what we do know. Between 2016 and now, he got re-chosen by the NDC to lead them into this election, and he's been campaigning. He's gone all over the place. And on a lighter note, he wrote a book, My First Coup d'Etat. And some of the aspects have made very interesting political fodder where people mention them innocently and say, oh, I've read the book. This is what Mahama says out of innocence. Then the other part statement and says, look at this man. He said he was indecisive. Why do you want to vote for an indecisive person as president? So that's John Mahama's.
His words being used against
those are his travails, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and he entered Parliament in 1996. He became Deputy Minister, then Substantive Minister,
Communications, yes.
And then Vice President, and then President and Opposition Leader. So if you look at his political career and the trajectory, he's filled almost all the key positions in our political landscape, from being MP, Deputy Minister, Minister, President, Opposition Leader.
And his work with Plan Ghana up north would have even given him the chance to work as close to a community as a DCE.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So he's worked across all the levels. I think he's the first vice president to become president in our history, right? So he took over when Professor Mills died, and then ran, and then he won. He campaigned and won, and he's the first president to have also lost elections going into a second round. And he's the first former president campaigning as an opposition leader now.
Mills was vice president and became president, so he's not the first vice.
But Mills didn't become president immediately. I'm looking at the trajectory of the immediacy. So from vice president, Professor Mills unfortunately died, so he took over.
In terms of replacing
to serve the final tenure of Professor Mills. Then immediately after that, he ran for office and he won. And then immediately after that, he ran again and he lost. And immediately after losing, he's running again. So it's been a back-to-back
been through it all.
Yes, of being through it all. And fortunately or unfortunately, he's contesting against his political or parliamentary classmates, because they all entered parliament in the same year. And it's the same person who beat him for him to become an opposition leader. So it's quite an interesting journey. So in talking about all these 17 people, former President Mahama and current President Akufo-Addo are two individuals in the group that you can really compare appropriately when you talk about their role and their track record. They were all in parliament.
Yeah.
How well did they serve in parliament? They were all ministers. What was their contribution to the ministries that they managed? They've all become president and tasted authority. How well did they manage Ghana as CEOs? And so they are going head to head, and it's quite an interesting. So this year is a year of a second, because the first time they went to parliament together in '96, and this one is doing round 2. John Mahama is trying to run to be president for the second time, right? And this will be the third time he's running for president, because 2012, 2016, 2020. Now Akufo-Addo ran against Mills, right?
Then 2008.
Yes, 2012.
Against Mahama in 2012. Yes. Against Mahama in 2016.
So it's an interest. So they are opponents who know themselves. They've been at each other's necks the past roughly 12 years. Even when Mahama was vice, in their campaigns, he was attacking Akufo-Addo. Akufo-Addo was also giving him something small.
Okay.
So
right. Now he's out. He was voted out in the last elections. He wants to come in. What are his chances?
Quite difficult to tell. Okay, first of all, what does he have? He would have, say, a good amount of the NDC's 44% of what they got the last time round. So that's something he can start with. I mean, assuming that nothing changes and they have that in hand, that's what he can start with. What are his chances? 50-50, because you see, he can look, it can work either way. He can look at it and say, I have the experience of one, campaigning before, knowing what it takes to win an election, and the advantage of, should he win, having a term that's not too far behind him. He was president not too long ago, so he would have the chance to, as he says, correct his mistakes and put things right. What doesn't work for him is the kind of impression or the kind of image that the electorate had of him and the NDC heading into the 2016 election. Again, the factor of immediacy and recent history kind of goes against him, because if you listen to the MPP's campaign message, a good part of it is reminding Ghanaians of how Ghana was under John Mahama, because they said there was doomsday, things were not working, things were this, corruption and all of that. So you can't say that this happened 20 years ago, so Ghanaians will forget, or 20 years ago is too far to bring back. It's just quite recent. So that's what John Mahama has to fight against. How does he tell people that, look, I've changed and things are different and I'll, get things to work differently? How does he overturn an almost 1 million vote difference? How does he swing that back in his favor? It's a huge thing to do. And you are going up against a government that is in office, a government that has the power of incumbency, and a government that will enjoy the tradition of nobody gets voted out after their first term. Of course, you can argue and say the NDC got kicked out after their first term. But then you can also argue and say, well, that was the NDC's second term, because Mills did one half of it, and then John Dramani Mahama did the other half. So those are the things that he would have to fight against. Those factors, history, trends, the perception people have those perceptions changed? And with the MPP hammering on those perceptions, it's a huge ask. It's a huge ask. But if there's anybody who has taken on the MPP and has some skill and has some history to fall on, it's John Mahama. That's the NDC's best bet now, because whoever they bring again will be very new to this. He wouldn't know what to do. Even though people say, oh, he's a fresh face, the disadvantage is that he's new. He doesn't have, what is he even going to campaign on? So I think the NDC must have looked at all the factors, and they brought the person who's most conversant with this war, quote unquote, and that's why probably they settled on John Mahama. Okay.
Campaign-wise, is he being visible enough as compared to his opponent?
I think they are doing both for both, based on what I'm seeing online, on TV. But unfortunately, and this happens to everybody, when they were in office, he was a bit more visible on the front pages of some of the newspapers or a lot of the newspapers. But that's not the case now. Yeah. Now, campaign-wise, Nana Akufo-Addo is a bit more visible on some of the newspapers and most of the newspapers and in the media.
Social, Nana Akufo-Addo is a bit more visible.
Yes, on social. When we're getting into the 2016 elections, John Mahama was a bit ahead of Nana Akufo-Addo when it comes to the social stats but the MPP and Nana Akufo-Addo social media team has really worked on improving his social media presence to make him a bit more loud on social media, if that's a good expression to use, as in a bit more seen on social media.
Yes.
Yeah. And today you see almost on a daily basis, Nana Akufo-Addo's pages on social media are broadcasting something. And it's usually supported by Baumia's pages who also broadcast.
The MPP's official page,
Loyal Ladies,
yes, and all of
Hope
that.
Campaign,
yes.
And a lot of pages.
And you have the individuals who are also pushing, following, who are also pushing those things.
John Mahama's page is also almost always pushing something. Supported by the likes of Wizard TV, supported by the NDC's pages, and some other notable pages. So they are all going out on social media. They're also trying to go out but the shift is that whereas in 2016, the NDC then, as an incumbent government, could block time on the various airwaves. You remember there was a time that they blocked the airwaves practically. So you tune into Peace FM, NDC, City FM, NDC, somebody there, Joy, NDC, Adom, NDC, every station, because they had the resources. We are seeing that now because the NPP is in power, Nana Akufo-Addo is in power, so we are seeing that now. And so every day there's a short-cutting, a commissioning, or a fresh promise, which will most definitely make it to the front pages.
Or an infomercial on TV.
Yes. Yeah. And you would hardly see John Mahama on the front pages like he was back in 2016. So there's been a shift. Okay. There's been a shift. But they're all campaigning. For example, this morning, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman's page tweeted, Kuberika, I'm visiting you. Yeah. Are you ready? Yeah. John Mahama is also touring different parts of the country. He's been to almost all the regions. Akufo-Addo is doing the same, mixing government work and political campaigning. And it's interesting. So the candidates are not going out with their flag bearer, with their running mates. They've spread it. So when Nana is in the north, Baumia is in the west. When Jane is in Ashanti, Mahama is in Greater Accra region. So they have divided the labor so that they can reach a lot more people. Okay. So they are pushing, and you see, unlike the others, that the two main political parties know that this is a serious fight. I didn't want to use do or die. We don't want to encourage death, but they are pushing because they know that this is very important.
Okay,
so that's basically what's happening there.
Let's wrap up with the current president, Nana Akufo-Addo, running for 2020 as well. We'll pick a quick video of him also on his plans of winning the elections.
We have no reason to believe the NDC presidential candidate's newly proclaimed conversion to free SH and free TVET. For 8 years, he and his party were loud in their assertions that they did not believe in free SHS and free TVET. They did not like the idea, they rubbished it at every opportunity, and they proclaimed that it would destroy Ghana's educational system. When they were in office, they had a hard time trying to run even their watered-down version of their so-called progressively free education. Then the former president said he would review it, and now we hear him say it has come to stay. Excellency, please try another one. Your credibility on this one is zero. Free SHS and free TVET cannot be trusted in your hands. I know that the NDC presidential candidate, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, believes and says often that Ghanaians have a short memory. And he must hold strongly to this belief. Otherwise, I doubt he would have summoned the courage to be seeking another term after the disaster that was his presidency. Ghanaians might have short memories, but not short enough for us to have forgotten the broken down freezers, irons, and other household equipment thanks to the 5 years of Dumso. Our memories are not short enough to forget that the economy under him was such a wreck that there was a ban placed on all recruitment into our public services. Our memories are not short enough to forget that teachers taught for 3 years and were only paid for 3 months. Our memories are certainly not short enough to forget that he brought our entire financial services system to near collapse. I've heard him make the extraordinary claim that Ghana's economy was in, quote, tatters, not because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but because of mismanagement. I doubt that he can recognize a well-managed economy, even if it slapped him in the face.
So that's the final candidate, President Akufo-Addo, also vying for the post for president for 2020. Who is Nana Addo?
Well, interesting. He's come from a long line. Well, he has a great history in terms of politics, a long line of politicians, either like his dad was president at a point, his uncle, J.B. Dankwa, we know his story. But himself, he's been very active since the 70s. If you talk about Fourth Republican politics, he was part of the NPP when they started back in 91, 92. And he was Edubahin's campaign manager back in 92. So the bit that didn't work for Edubahin, he was part of it. In 96, he wanted to contest the flag bearership. He lost to John Kufuor, and then John Kufuor was maintained, and then in the year 2000, John Kufuor won. Then he got to serve in John Kufuor's government, first as Attorney General. He was still MP at a point. He was still MP at the time. Attorney General and then Foreign Minister. And then in the year 2008, after John Kufuor's term, he wanted to contest the flag bearership. Eventually came down to a straight fight between he and Alan Chiamanti, and he got elected. But he didn't win that time, didn't win in 2012. In 2012, we all know the story. The Supreme Court case went back and forth, and then in 2016, everything came together for him to win the election by a huge margin, almost 1 million votes. And that's how come he's here today, and that's how come he's heading into the 2020 elections as the incumbent and as the one who is in power.
His chances?
Well, he's seen what works and what doesn't work. We've had the infrastructure debates, the Dumso debates, the economy debates, and he's been hitting on topics that the NPP then in opposition used to win the elections to remind their followers and Ghanaians that this was where you were and this is where we've come. And if you make a mistake and you bring former President Mahama, you may go back there. So if you listen, he will tout his achievements with free senior high school. He will tout his achievements with planting for food and jobs. And you'll always be reminded that for a year, we've produced more than maize and we've not been importing maize, and we are seeing some progress in other areas. And then you hit on Dumso. Most speeches of the president, when it comes to campaign, he reminds people that we had Dumso for 5 years, and you do not want to vote for former President Mahama to bring you back into Dumso. Then they'll mention the banking sector reform, especially and the financial sector related issues. Initially, it was a 50-50 thing because people were still not happy that they had not been paid. But with time, as people are being paid, it's coming into the conversation. And the fact that they are better managers of the economy, even in COVID times, they always also mention the economy. We've not seen a lot of the CD dollar rate debate this time. But back then, it was a big debate.
It was a big one.
Even after the NPP won, the vice president used to talk about the CD dollar rate a lot to make a case for. So Nana Akufo-Addo has seen it. He's also seen it all, done it all. MP for Ibuakwa. Then Ibuakwa was slashed, and then he became. Initially, Ibuakwa was one constituency, right, and then it was slashed. So he took the other part, became Foreign Affairs Minister. I think he was also Attorney General, and then flag bearer of the party. And in being flag bearer, he contested against Kofi. Yes. And then later, when Kofi went out of office after 2 terms, he won. And then he was contested by about 17 or so 16 other people. So when it comes to politics too, he's also one of the people who has seen it all and been experienced.
A lot of experience.
But what I think I'm noticing these days, unlike the 2016 election and where we used to hear Bawumia heralding a lot of the government's big ticket items, I may be wrong, you guys can correct me. I think that this time he's taking charge of speaking to a lot of the big ticket items. Even though Vice President Bawumia is still also campaigning. The president is a bit more visible these days on all front pages of newspapers, and he's taking his position properly as the leader in the campaign. I am seeing that trend. And so he's speaking to the issues and also hitting at former President Mahama when need be. So that is the man, Nana Akufo-Addo. He's actually the oldest in the lot when it comes to those running for president. He's 76. The next person is Nana Rawlings, and then Madam Akua Donko will come. Henry Herbert Lartey will come. Alfred Esiedu Walker, and then John Dramani Mahama.
Let me take some few messages before we close. Our time is up. Papa from Minnesota, USA says, I believe the media should push the 2 main political parties to debate. It will only enhance our democracy and inform the electorate on who to entrust their fate into for the next 4 years. The media shouldn't feel like this. Kobe Roni says, I so believe in trying and giving the small political parties opportunity. One can envisage, even before the battle begins, that you can't in any way see it out and come out victorious. Please educate me on this. Aside the betterment of their CVs, which could be a factor, is it the case that the EC, out of sympathy, give their monies back to them on the grounds that they couldn't win the elections? I just can't think far. And then another one says, I've decided to vote Dr. Henry Lartey for GCPP because of the domestication policy. A Bayer Pinso coming December 7, you say. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. And thank you so much also for joining us this afternoon. I was here with Nathan Kwao as well as Kojo Akoto-Boateng. My name is Vivian Kai Loco. We'll see you again tomorrow. Goodbye.